The morning it all happened felt like any other Tuesday. The sky over Cedar Glen was soft with golden light, the kind that makes you breathe a little deeper and feel like maybe everything's going to be okay. Folks were out early mending fences, feeding chickens, sipping coffee on their porches with dogs at their feet. It was the kind of quiet you don't notice until something breaks it. And it broke. I was hanging laundry out back when I heard it had awful sound. A deep, gut-twisting bellow that didn't sound like any normal cow noise. It wasn't just loud, it was wrong. You know how animals can scream? This was a scream. I dropped the sheet I was holding and just stood there, my heart already pounding. The sound came again, more desperate this time, and something in my bones said, "Run." Turns out I wasn't the only one who heard it. Engines fired up, doors slammed, neighbors spilled out into the road like a small-town stampede. We all ended up heading in the same direction, the old Larson place, where Buck, the biggest bull in the valley, grazed most days. Buck wasn't just big, he was legendary. Jet black, nearly 2,000 pounds, smart as a whip, and gentle like a family dog. Kids fed him apples over the fence. Old folks talked to him like he understood. Maybe he did. But that morning, when we crested the rise and looked down into that pasture, our stomachs turned. Buck was Tangledno, trapped in the barbed wire that ran along the far fence. He must have tried to jump it or got spooked by something in the night. The wire had wrapped around his neck and front legs so tight it was cutting deep, his black coat streaked with red. He was thrashing hard, foam dripping from his mouth, eyes wide with the kind of fear that makes you feel sick just looking at it. Old Man Larson stood by the gate, pale and shaking. He muttered something about calling the vet, but the guy was 40 minutes out, and Buck didn't have 40 minutes. Every time someone stepped toward the fence, Buck panicked more, jerking against the wire, cutting himself worse. My husband Joe clenched his jaw and said, "We can't just let him die like this." A few other men nodded, rolled up their sleeves. But as soon as they got close, Buck lost it again, nearly tore his own leg open. Dr. Walters, the vet, finally showed up and took one look before saying, "If we try to cut that wire while he's moving, we could kill him. But if we wait, he's going to bleed out or choke himself." No one had any good answers. Then came the part none of us will ever forget. See, in all the chaos, no one noticed little Ellie Simmons, barely 19 months old, sitting in her stroller near the back. Her big brother Max had been filming everything on his phone. Their mom, Rachel, had turned to talk to someone, and Ellie, being Ellie, somehow unbuckled herself and started crawling toward the fence. By the time we saw her, she was nearly 10 feet from Buck. Rachel screamed. Joe shouted. But we were too far. We all froze, terrified. Buck heard the commotion and turned, his massive head swung toward this tiny girl crawling through the grass in a bright sunflower dress. I swear my heart stopped. But then everything changed. Ellie sat up, right near the bottom wire, and just looked at him. This tiny human, all innocence and sunshine, tilted her head and made this soft little cooing sound. And Buck, who had been ripping his own flesh moments earlier, went still. Completely still. His ears flicked, his eyes locked on hers, and his breathing slowed. It was like someone flipped a switch. None of us moved, afraid to break whatever spell had come over them. Ellie reached out through the fence and touched his nose, just a tiny finger against 2,000 pounds of muscle, and panic, and Buck closed his eyes, let out a long, low breath, and stood there, quiet as a statue. Dr. Walters whispered, "Now. Do it now." Joe and Old Man Larson moved in slow and steady, cutting wire from opposite sides. Buck didn't even flinch. Ellie kept babbling softly, like she was telling him it was okay, and somehow, he believed her. When the last piece of wire fell away, Buck stepped back, free for the first time in what felt like hours. We all held our breath, expecting him to bolt. Instead, he lowered his huge head and pressed it gently against Ellie's tiny hand. She giggled, this light, ringing sound that made grown men wipe their eyes. No one spoke. No one could. Dr. Walters treated the cuts thankfully not as bad as we feared, and Buck stood there like a statue the whole time, his eyes on Ellie. That little girl never moved from her spot, never cried, never showed fear. Just kept whispering to him like they were old friends. When it was all over, Rachel scooped Ellie up, sobbing and kissing her face. Ellie just pointed at Buck and said one clear word: friend. That was the moment the tears really started. The days that followed felt different. Folks talked softer. Kids asked more questions. Rachel started getting emails from people in other towns who'd seen Max's video. It went viral, naturally. Reporters showed up, but none of them could really capture it. That moment, that magic, you had to be there. Larson tore out all the old fencing and put in safer rails. Started a visiting area for folks to meet Buck up close. That bull-scarred but healthy became a symbol of something bigger than himself. Every Friday, Rachel brought Ellie to visit, and every Friday, Buck came to the fence like a puppy waiting for his best friend. We built a little bench out there by the pasture where folks could sit and watch. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they just sat in silence. But every single person walked away with the same look in their eyes, like something inside them had been softened or healed. The whole town changed. Joe started offering free fence checks to neighboring farms. Sarah opened a program at the library teaching kids how to treat animals with kindness. Dr. Walters began hosting monthly talks on animal behavior, always ending with, Ellie showed us that calmness and love speak louder than fear. Ellie, of course, had no idea she'd changed the world. To her, Buck was still just her big buddy with the warm nose and soft eyes who liked to listen to her stories about her toy duck or the color of her new socks. On the 6-month anniversary of the rescue, we held a picnic at Larson's farm. Families from counties away came to see the girl and the bull. There were speeches, sure, but the real moment was when Ellie, now toddling confidently, ran to the fence yelling, Buck! And he came right over like he'd been waiting all day. She kissed his nose. He blinked slowly, and the whole crowd sighed like the earth itself had exhaled. Larson turned to me and said, she gave him a purpose, you know. Before he was just a bull. Now he's a teacher. I think about that a lot. You don't expect miracles on a Tuesday morning. But maybe that's exactly when they happen, when you least expect them, in places you've stopped looking. And maybe, just maybe, they come in the form of a baby girl in a sunflower dress, crawling straight toward fear, and making it sit down and listen. What about you? Do you believe some people are just born with that connection, that kind of quiet magic that animals trust instantly? Or was it something else entirely? A child's innocence? A perfect moment? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What part of Ellie and Buck's story moved you the most? And how might you carry that same compassion into your own corner of the world? Because sometimes, the smallest hands hold the biggest power to change everything.